Yep.
And to bring this meeting to order, we'll start off with a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I'm going to read the ethics statement now. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on the agenda, please so state at this time. Not seeing anybody raise their hand, I'll assume we don't have any conflict, and obviously during the event, if you think of one, just raise your hand and we'll talk about it at that time. I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. I'm going to do a real quick housekeeping thing first because some of you have to leave and I want to make sure I get this stuff out. So last night, a couple of nights ago, we had the big rain, including in that you may have or may not have seen the notice. But for your education, we're at least 17,000 tons of sewage, 17,000 gallons of sewage that went into the water. Some from Ninth Street lift station, and I think some from the lift station down on Bay Street because of the water was squirting out of there as well. So we'll ask you questions about it, at least that you'll know that that happened. The county notified the newspapers and it was in the press, but I just want to make sure that you knew that. We have a meeting on Monday. Please read the package. There is the weather tower is finally coming up. Great thing. Actually, there's actually a timeline to get it done. It's like unbelievable. We finally progressed to that point. And there's a parking discussion on it as well. Some of you have asked for. For the 12th, Mark's asked to add another thing, and that is a letter of support. We're not going to talk about it. A detailed letter of support for a homeowners association that is asking the state to provide a better flow of water underneath Bonus Creek and Moore Street. If you had the opportunity, go down to Moore Street where Price Creek, yes, and see what they've done there. It's really interesting what they're doing. So it's an interesting thing. And we had a big discussion about annexation yesterday with all the parties that were involved for Indigo. And so we're moving forward to make sure that it's, I'm going to use the term hot-proof, disrespect term, because I'm picking on myself, so that when someone reads it, it's clear and concise, and there's no ambiguity about what timelines are for the annexation. With that, Mr. Manager, if you would go be so kind as you could.
Well, good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, city employees, Southport residents and business owners. It's an honor for me to present to you my recommended budget for our next fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. Let me first take this opportunity to thank our city staff who work tirelessly every day to ensure the services get delivered to our community every day, and their help for the process of this budget. A special thank you to our department heads that have put forth their recommendations and visions for their departments for this budget. Also, a special thank you to our incredible finance team, led by our great new finance director, Joey Conoweder, who has worked tirelessly with me to make this budget a reality. A budget is a financial document with a lot of numbers and charts and graphs and spreadsheets, but it is so much more. A budget delivers the critical services that our community relies on, and it is the essential and most important thing we do each year. A budget lays the groundwork not only for our coming year, but for years to come. A budget is also a time to look for new innovations and improvements of services and opportunities to improve our city and move us forward.
Is it on?
Yeah. So how did our FY 26 budget process begin? In December, under the previous administration, we began our budget planning process for FY 26. At that time, it was estimated that we would be faced with a $1.4 million deficit due to the loss of the water and sewer fund after the transition of those services to the county, and due to the early start of the budget process last year without knowing the full revenue and expense picture we have today. To start the budget process, each department submitted their request for what they wanted to see in their departments for the year to come. When I took over the budget process as the new city manager in February, I set out to guide this budget by a few simple principles: to maintain the critical services that our community relies on, while making sure that we look for savings and opportunities without cutting any of those critical services or harming our city employees. This budget was developed to achieve long-term financial success by implementing savings and improving efficiency while staying true to our core values. Then we held each individual department head meeting for the Aldermen to gauge your feedback and your goals for each department for the next year. After those meetings, myself and finance staff worked to comb through those departmental requests, and I made strategic adjustments to those lines and those budgets without harming our critical services for employees. Then we took a hard look at our revenues and expenditures year to date for our current 25 budget year, as well as the historic data over the last several years on what we can expect for our financial picture for the years to come. All of this work is in culmination to today's proposed manager's budget. Today, I'm proud to present our FY 26 budget with no tax increases and no use of general fund balance. Let me say that again. This budget maintains our current 31-cent tax rate, with one of those cents going to be dedicated to our capital fund for dedicated funding to that fund, and no use of general fund balance, which is incredible of all of our hard work compared to where we began in the beginning. The city has several operational funds within our budget. Our largest city fund is our general fund. The general fund covers most departments except for our electric department. The general fund for FY 26 totals a little over $15 million. This budget reduces 3 general fund full-time employees through attrition, so no employees will be harmed. This budget also takes care of our employees by providing a 3% cost of living adjustment to make sure our employees' wages remain competitive and stay ahead of inflation. This budget also provides up to a 2% merit opportunity for staff. However, it's important to note that not all staff will receive a 2% merit. That will be based on their performance, as some will receive the 2%, some will receive less, and some will receive no performance bonus, depending on their performance. So where does our city revenues come from? These graphs can be shown of where the largest streams of revenue comes into the city. Our largest streams of revenue comes from our property tax, our sales tax, and other funding streams such as our permitting fees or our fire department district fees. So where does all that money go to? So our city expenses by department, this graph shows the percentage breakdown of total expenditure for each department. Our largest departments by total expense is the fire department, the police department, and public works. So that graph gives a thorough breakdown of percentage used by each department. However, this graph, it's important to note that those departments are our largest by total expenditures. It is not necessarily where the 30% of general fund tax dollars go to. This graph breaks down the penny breakdown of those taxes per department, after accounting for revenues that that department will receive. For example, the fire department only takes 2.89 of those cents, as a lot of their revenue comes from the fire district fees. Also, in this budget, we move forward in some new forward-thinking visioning opportunities. This budget provides for a new financial accounting and budgeting software system. Currently, the city uses Springbrook for all of our financial accounting, and purchase orders needs. Over the last few years, the city has planned to transition to Black Mountain, which is a new software recommended by the League of Municipalities in this fiscal year. However, after reviewing this Black Mountain software, I have determined with finance staff that we will instead choose to use a new software system called OpenGov, which is an industry-leading enterprise and financial budgeting software system. OpenGov will support all of our financial and budgeting needs with AI-powered software while implementing enhanced efficiencies, accuracies, and transparency. This move also positions us to receive the Distinguished GFOA Governmental Financial Officers Association's Distinguished Budgeting Award in the future. Although Black Mountain would have been provided to us at a discount with the league over the next few years, Black Mountain would have moved us backwards and not forward, and it would have incurred increased costs due to the fact that Black Mountain does not translate any of our historical data, and we would have to pay for that. So this system is better all the way around, and I believe this software system will embark us on a new journey to make sure our financial and accounting and budgeting process is better going forward. Many municipalities and governmental agencies use OpenGov. Our neighbors in Leland that use this software, we've had numerous conversations with them. They are very happy with that process. This is an example of one of the functionalities that the software can provide. It provides a dashboard of daily to the public. All the information that finance and myself sees, the public will be able to see, comparing the adopted yearly budget to what revenues and expenses have been incurred year to date, and where our up-to-date fund balance is. We've had numerous conversations with OpenGov, and I'm confident that we will have a successful transition with this new software going forward. The budget is also funded by several fees. There are only 3 proposed fee changes in this budget. The first is an increase in community building rental fees to ensure that we are gaining the requisite revenue consistent with such a great waterfront venue. Currently, our rental rates are way below market value for similar venues or even lesser venues. And these rates will bring us into compliance with our peer event venues and make sure we are able to get the revenue from that building that we serve for that good oceanfront property. We also recommend an increase in the filming permit fees and the road closure fees to ensure that when filming comes to town, they contribute to the disruption they might cause within the city. There's also a minor increase in the Park and Rec summer program by a few dollars, but we maintain that program as a service to the community and not an overall revenue generator. This year, we held a fee committee discussion on these rates, which consisted of Mayor Hall, Mayor Pro Tem Kelly, and Alderman Lay that has helped us review these rates so far. We are also recommending a change in the way the golf cart registration process works. Although the fee will remain the same, we're going to switch from fiscal year July 1st through June 30th to a calendar year, January 1st through December 31st, which will make it easier for residents and staff through the golf cart registration process. All residents who have a current 25-year sticker will be automatically extended and good through December 31st of this year. And 26 stickers will start to be issued in December. Although some 26 stickers have already been issued, there are very few of those, and those will also be extended through the life of the next cycle. And our registration period will run through December through March 31st for the registration process. We continue to have a robust general fund balance. For those who might not know what a fund balance is, it's essentially our city savings account for our general fund. It's the money that we receive after expenditures and revenue comes in every year as revenues exceed expenditures. We continue to grow that fund balance year over year. At the conclusion of our current FY25 year, we anticipate over $12.5 million in general fund balance. The board has a 55% fund balance policy that mandates we must maintain 55% of each year's expenditures. As we can see that we have more than an abundance of the 55% in our current 25 to 26 fund balance, leaving over $3.9 million of fund balance utilization should the need arise over the 55% policy. Although this budget is only operational for 1 year, we must take a proactive look to the future for what we can expect in the coming years, as this budget lays the foundation for our years to come. This chart shows what our deficit or surplus might be over the next 10 years. Next year, this graph shows an estimated $250,000 deficit. However, I would caution us using the term $250,000 deficit, as this calculation only assumes we adopt the FY26 budget as presented, with no accounting for increases in revenue or adjustments to next year's expenditures. As this year that was estimated to have a deficit, we can always adjust so that that deficit does not become a reality. And throughout the coming years, we will see a surplus rising every year of that surplus over the next 10 years. Now on our electrical fund, which is our other major city function. The total FY26 electric fund totals a little over $9.6 million. Those who might not be aware, the city is in a cooperative called Electric Cities with other municipalities throughout the state that we purchase our energy from Duke Energy. We were able to get those rates at a cheaper price than residential customers can get from Duke, as we buy the power in bulk from Duke. Duke has increased the rates to Electric City and Southport by 3.5%, which is a pass-through to our customers. So this year, there will be a 3.5% increase in the electric rate. However, it's important to note that 3.5% is coming from Duke and not the doing of Southport. However, our electric fund remains stable and increases every year in fund balance. Our electric fund also invests in key significant projects. Most folks are aware of our underground project, taking our electric poles and our electricity lines from above ground and buries them underground to ensure resiliency during storms and a more visually appeal of our city streets. As you can see from this graph, our electric fund balance also continues to grow and remain robust. At the current 25 fiscal year end, it's estimated that we will have over $8 million of electrical fund balance, even after investing in heavily in underground projects and other key priorities. The fund balance of the electric fund continues to grow as revenues and cash flow positions remain solid and increasing every year. Our next fund is the capital fund of the budget that invests in key major infrastructure projects. For one of those, 31 cents of tax rates go for dedicated funding. At the end of the 25 fiscal year, it is estimated we will have over a $2 million fund balance in the capital fund that we were able to invest in key priorities. This budget recommends $1.4 million in capital projects that are listed on the screen. However, the $1.5 million utilizes a carryover that has not been used in this current FY25 year outside of the $2 million. So we still have a robust fund balance to invest in capital projects. Although we invest in key priorities, it's important to note the city staff does some of this work, while other major projects require outside general contractors to do the work. This is an example of our capital fund balance over time. It is fluctuating over time. It's not as forward as the general fund and electric fund balance is, but if we still remain a robust electrical fund throughout the years. Our last fund in the budget is the Shoreline Stabilization Fund, which totals $5 million, which was appropriated from the General Assembly for our shoreline project. Although most of this money remains in the Shoreline Stabilization Fund, this budget appropriates that fund so that this year we can get moving on that project and spend a large portion of those funds to meet the state deadline by the next fiscal year, ending in June 30th, 2026. In closing, this FY26 budget makes a significant forward investment in our city and in our future, ensuring that we deliver the critical services that our community relies on each day. The financial health of the city of Southport is stronger than ever before. However, we must remain vigilant as we implement this budget, ensuring that we are responding to any shifts in economic conditions or unexpected occurrences, while ensuring our continued progress and well-being of our city. I'm confident that this plan not only sets us on a solid path for our upcoming fiscal year, but lays a solid foundation for the Southport's financial stability for the years to come. So following today's presentation, we'll release all this information, the PowerPoint, and our budget books on the city website for everybody to see and go through. We will also have a hard copy of the budget book available at City Hall in the clerk's office, as well as the library right beside of us. The board will hold its required public hearing at its regular June 12th budget meeting at 6 o'clock in the community building for any public input that folks might have. The board can then choose to vote that night on the budget or wait until another date, such as the June 23rd meeting that is already on the calendar for budget adoption. As always, the budget must be adopted by June 30th for a new start of the fiscal year beginning July 1st. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anybody have questions of the manager?
Go ahead. Well, my questions are really way to go. I don't know how you did it. You created money we didn't see. Well, I guess that's what government does, just print it, right? So, as it relates to the electric fund, so we thought we were going to bankrupt that fund pretty quickly based on all the information we have. Obviously, that's not happening, but I was only keeping the investment in underground. We're actually reducing it from 1.6 to 1 million. What's the purpose?
So that is the funding of the underground is subject to the contractors at BEMC and the other contractors. So it's not like we can say, here's $5 million, get all of it done in 1 year. The $1 million is about to their track every year of what they are able to do. So when we looked at what our historical investment was in the underground over the last few years, with multi-million dollars investment in underground, as we learned that the contractors could not keep up with that money, that's why that money the original thinking was that money would be spent in prior budgets, and that's why the electric fund would be down. Because
But we didn't spend, we were putting in 1.6, because I remember it was Alderman Carroll who asked for that to be doubled to 800,000. We didn't spend the $600,000?
We did spend underground, but not to what the FY25 budget totals.
So the capital fund or the capital projects for electric was adopted 3.37 million. To date, we spent under 1.6. So we're adding, there's roughly $1.8 million not spent this year that will be going back into the fund.
But this is not just from last year, this is from years past, and you're saying?
Correct, that's what it seems.
Right. So, I mean, we have the base of the electric fund balance over the last few years.
I'm just curious.
Right, because we didn't spend
That we
anything.
weren't made aware that we weren't, why were we dedicating 1.6, 1.8?
Right.
We never.
And I think in the beginning, it was the thought of staff that we could ramp it up with money to get it done quicker. But as we went through, the contractors have not been able to keep up with that.
Well, but we're also going back to pre-COVID pricing. We're not seeing the long lead times to get the supplies any longer, as well as pricing is kind of regulating again.
Right.
But that's I think 3 years we've expected that. I mean, it's a good problem to have. You know, I'm glad we have money and they can't keep up, but we've seen, you know, what I think is significant progress. We're actually starting to see things throughout town happening. So I just want to make sure that we keep the spending
Absolutely.
to what they can accomplish, right?
Is that what they're doing on the Garrison?
They are.
They're
Yeah.
underground in here?
That's right.
And finding civil war stuff.
I saw that. That was kind of a cool thing.
Thanks for the release.
I mean, but we can't do tents there, but they can dig it up.
What you're saying is a lot of the green boxes are gonna be showing up on the street, and we put together a little enclosure that you can hide that so you don't see it. But again, one of the disadvantages of bringing the poles down and putting it underground, you have the green boxes everywhere.
Right.
But again, progress is being made.
Absolutely.
Well, and Frank, maybe that's an opportunity for us in the future to work with our arts community and decorate those, if that's an option. There's some options for that. going forward. Let's get it done.
Yeah, exactly. Get it done.
I have a few questions, mostly related to electric. On page 6 of the packet you gave us, it says cost transfers from electric, 365,000.
Right.
What is that?
So that is bringing from the general fund. The profit puts off some of that money over to the general fund. So as we have in previous years, we did a transfer to the general fund to support what the general fund does for the electric fund. That covers those expenses from the general fund. So we are reducing that every year. And like the utility fund that was overutilized, we don't want to be in that situation. But the electric fund is an asset of the general fund. And so we should utilize that investment, return on investment to the general fund for the expenses that the electric fund incurs.
So that goes against the fund balance, the electric fund balance.
It's operational, so not the fund balance itself, but within the electric fund every year through the cash flow.
So that's pays for, I mean, what are
So like the staff that, it would be myself, the finance team, Tori, anybody who touches a percentage of that fund in our work, there's a percentage charged to that fund for those works. But we are reducing it every year. I think in FY 25, we appropriated 406,000, and so reducing that this year. And as we go forward after electric is done, then we have full profit to be able to further utilize in the general fund.
I'm just struggling because in January we were given numbers, and even in April, we were given different numbers for the electric fund
Right.
that are in this.
Right.
So I'm just struggling with, it's like it's a moving target, and now we're gonna have an $8 million fund balance left.
Right.
I'm struggling to see
Well,
all that.
As in the previous presentation, so that was before we knew year-to-date revenues and expenses actuals. That's before we knew what the total fund balance picture would look like, and that's before any adjustments was made to those projects going forward. So sure, it's always going to be a moving target until we get to this point. But as we look at the historical data of those funds, as well as what year-to-date actuals were, which we base the budget on, that is why we arrived at this picture that is significantly better than was originally projected.
And I'm looking at what we were given on April 25th.
Right.
And it's, significant, it's about 8% less than what you're giving us.
Right.
Now.
And that time.
And that is based on year to date.
And at that time, we did think at that time, we were still going to be able to ramp up the underground and spend more in the FY 26 year. After April, when we realized that the electric underground was only going to be able to utilize $1 million a year, that's why it was reduced out back. So in that presentation, we still have a ramp up of capital within the electric.
But this is the sale of electricity. So the difference is.
At the April meeting, there was over $2 million allocated to capital as it stands. Okay.
And we also,
I'm talking about just the difference in the sale of electricity.
and it accounts
So
for,
That's all.
there's a rider from electricities that is falling off in July that is about an 8% revenue increase for the city.
so our cash flow position is increasing from what we knew in April. So as the electric city sent their formal documents that they received from Duke, then we have been able
Yeah,
to
sorry.
update the electric.
That's the 8% increase for city.
That's that big loss bond that we had, the electric cities had, but the sale of the nuclear power plant.
Is that even with the 3.5% increase?
Correct. So the 3.5%, like Noah said, is passed on from Duper, then passing that along to the customer. So that's a net zero.
Yeah.
This 8% increase is from a rider falling off, as the mayor said, from a bond. And that is a straight revenue increase.
What we're paying for that bond is dropping off within the electric city cooperative. So that increases our cash flow in 26.
Is what you're saying. In April, that was a guess, and now this is
That's
reality.
right. Electric City sent those formal numbers after the April meeting.
Okay, so we were, my notes, I'm just going back to my notes from the April meeting. It anticipated that we were basically just building the fund by 300,000.
Right.
annually. Is that accurate?
So no, that did not take into account the non-utilization of FY 25 total capital number and did not account for any ramp up in the underground in 26. So this budget takes into account the new revenue, the less capital expenditures, and the new fund balance increases due to the base fund balance and what's not being spent in FY 25.
No, I get where you could come up with a higher fund balance if you're anticipating not spending money. But still, the anticipation is that we're only building the fund 300,000. Is that still an accurate?
No, because as throughout FY 26, because we'll see increased revenue, we have, average increases anyways, whether that's new homes coming online, whether that's new sale of electricity. Then with that rider coming off, that is a every month occurrence, which is operational outside of the fund balance, it adds to that. So the 300,000 fund balance that would be added has increased significantly since the April meeting, because all those factors came into play after the April meeting.
Revenues are up and expenditures are down.
Bottom line.
The same budget 101.
Okay, a couple of things. In our booklet, on page 3, the capital fund expenditures, stormwater improvements, you have as 125,000. That seems low, especially after the experiences of this week.
And so that is, the 125,000 is what Public Works has done in the past and will continue to do, so like the culvert repairs and those small things they do. As we look forward to pursue the brick grant and the other grants, then we would ramp up at that time with that expenditure. And then for some reason, if we did not get those funds, then we could come back and say, hey, we want to invest in that ourselves instead of not having a grant. So this is just the average work versus a large scale project.
Okay. Does that include attention to Roberts Creek?
So it does. So as we look at all our enhancements, it's certainly not a full replacement or anything of that nature that would cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars probably. It does take into account any work we can do there and other culverts or stormwater issues we might see.
And, I'm asking some questions that I know the answers to, but maybe the public doesn't. That does include work on trying to mitigate what the heck is happening on Sunday left.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got to come to stop that situation and come to those fixes to make sure that doesn't happen.
And if I remember correctly, on the stormwater plan, that area is prioritized to make sure that's done earlier, even though it's kind of upstream from some of our other.
And as a follow-up to that, Liberty Crossing,
Yeah.
Liberty Crossing, when they ripped out the inside of it after September 16th, the storm, they put a pump in the inside of the building. The other night when we had the rain, they got water in the building, a minor amount of water, and they pumped it out. That's the issue that we're talking about, and we've been managers well aware that it was there, is that if they have to pump a lot of water out, there's no place to pump it to. So potentially they can hook into the new piping that's going to be on Fodell. They can either temporarily run a hose. That's for the mechanics, engineers to work out. But we've been engaged, the management engaged with that to look at how we can reduce the risk of having to evacuate that building again, because that's a lot of manpower and there's health risk every time you do that. So they actually called, what was it called, Tuesday? They called Wednesday just to give us a heads up that they got some water. The chief knew it that night. And it was not enough to worry about. They pumped it out easily, but all those pieces are going to fit together.
The hospital has some water. And
So the hospital, you couldn't, Chief Drew was informing me that the hospital entranceway to the emergency room was too deep. Am I saying this correctly? Too deep to run ambulances to it. So they did what they did during September 16th. They came through the back door to be able to get people in and out of that. So there's
Workarounds.
There's fixes all going on in all different directions, fix that, and the manager's on top of all that.
With regards to Bonnet's Creek.
As you see,
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that DOT, what can we do with regards to them?
Well,
And I think we're all focused on Moore Street. I mean, because all of that comes to that point.
Yeah.
And if we fix everything upstream, that's gonna be a bigger problem.
that's right, and Alderman Spencer is pursuing that from the state level now, which you'll see at your 12th meeting. There's some residents that he's got in contact with, and we'll adopt a resolution of support to send that to Raleigh and say, hey, this is a key issue that needs to be addressed going forward from the state's perspective.
But they did the same thing that they're doing on Moore Street for Prices Creek, for Prices Creek. That would relieve the issue to, it's a bridge, but it's, right, it's not, yeah, we're not building the, there's on the bridge there.
Right.
But there's free flow of water.
Yes.
The sewer line going through the middle of that drain line is ridiculous. I don't see how anybody ever would let them do that. It just doesn't make sense.
A lot of things, sir. Appreciate it.
it's.
Thank you, engineer was involved.
Has a sewer line.
So thank you for your attention to that. The neighborhood is really, I did flood. It's okay. I prepared myself to flood. And I'm okay with it. But some people really get kicked because of this backup. It is really, in 2 hours, my backyard filled up 4 foot. It was amazing. It was amazing. I've never seen it in all my life.
Back in, so PTC 8.
This was, I left my house dry and came back 2 hours later to a random storm that I thought wasn't going to happen. And we're getting it like that now. On Lord Street, Bodale, people are calling saying, didn't you know this place flooded? No, it's never flooded like this. And I, even though I know we need to grow, the growth is what's got us. We're in the middle of a rock and roll place.
Is there a way for us to encourage people to plant more trees? I mean, like, I'm sorry, but
That
like,
coming from you.
I always love the trees.
Sorry, that.
One touching.
I've got 8 oak trees registered now in the National Registry, thank you.
We will work on this on that Thursday night, I guess. But it's very important. And I appreciate y'all keeping an eye on it because it is, I sent a video to all of us. And one side was full and the other was spinning like a pressure washer. And that's because it's clogged, it's blocked. And it will not allow water to get out. So.
We're getting more and more unusual weather events, that we've never seen
They're
before.
becoming normal, not
Yeah,
unusual
It's
anymore.
it's the new normal, that's correct. Unfortunately.
Let's go.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
It would not be a budget review if I did not comment on the deck replacement at the community building. This didn't come up last year, but I've got a couple of questions about this. The last time it did come up, I believe it was 50 or 60,000. Now it is 95. Old brakes or what?
Yeah, that is just a general number, so we have not bid that. So that is just a placeholder as we go down that path to have those contingencies money available for whatever those bids might look at. But yes, we have not bid it, so that's not necessarily the guaranteed price.
Is there the slightest chance we could reconsider replacing this wooden deck? Just taking it up and leaving it as grass, and for weddings, rolling out a red carpet between the community building steps and the deck overlooking the river, which is where the altar is usually set up. Because the grass, dirt will absorb water. Solid wood does not. So I raised my objections, as always. And finally, a question that's not in the general fund. Old City Hall. We know what we're looking at. We are hoping that the state does what they implied that they were going to do. But implied is not a commitment. What do we do if they say, no, no money from us for this project?
Fake sales.
That's right.
Make sense,
Yeah,
all
well,
right.
well, as you see, you know, we have that's right. We have a robust general fund balance. So, you know, we can support a debt payment for a loan on that construction should the need arise. So I'm not concerned with if that occurrence happens, us being able to fund a loan payment or even pay something outright with the fund balance. So I think we're very much in a good place to be in the actuality should it arise and make sure that building is repaired as it should be.
So right now, we're kind of at a hold to see if we get the funding, but if we pursue financing opportunities now alongside waiting for the money, we're making progress, right? So are we doing that? Are we
Yeah,
pursuing?
we're looking, so, you know, where it stands now is staff has sent for the RFQs for the architect firms. We received that internally. We're reviewing that now. That will come back to you to hire an architectural firm. So we can do that kind of simultaneously as well, regardless of financing options. And then we certainly can look at financing as we go forward. Now, as we look out to hopefully the next Federal Reserve meeting and others through the next year, you know, hopefully we see those rates go down, which they won't. Rates are not necessarily based on the federal funds rate. It has some correlation to it with the bond market. So as we see what the next few months look like there, and in the hope of some kind of little reduction of interest payments, I think we look at that while also pursuing loan payments or other finance and looking to that. So when we get to a stage after the state budget, we can hit the go button for whatever the need is for that building.
Do we have a potential date when the legislature is going to go into
July 4th.
all of this?
They claim they'll have their budget done by July 4th.
So they were,
July the 4th?
so last week, yes, they're saying it's gonna be a record year. So last week, the House passed their budget.
Yeah.
This week, they're off. So next week, they'll come back and conference the both chambers and try to reach an agreement hopefully in the next few weeks. So I hope that, you know, optimistically, hopefully we hear within in June, so that we can slide something in our budget before it's adopted in June. But if for some reason it delays, which is likely at the state level, but it'll just adjust to that time whenever that comes down.
And one final question, again, for the public. City vehicles have long been on a hot button.
Right.
Is there anything in this budget that calls for purchase or additional leases or continue?
We are staying,
Any expenditure unexpected on?
we are staying on the same path, not having to buy any new equipment of that nature, maintaining our current ones on the current lease program. So as those go through the process, we can purchase those to save on those monthly payments or look at that. So no major expenses like that this year's budget for purchase.
Thank you very much.
Mark, did you have a question?
The House bill have anything for our courthouse?
It did not. So neither budget had anything for anybody at the local level, which was expected. Normally that is thrown in conference. So we just wait for that process to play out.
That's just the normal way to do it.
I heard.
Any,
I'm trying.
Aaron, did you have something?
Yeah, dredging the yacht basement, I'd like to know where we are with that. We were trying to get a different spot for.
That's right. So we're looking at Spole's location now to work that out. We think we have another option with that. The state funds that we would be able to get for that with the city match, we have to wait on the Spole site. And then the Corps of Engineers has said, we're not doing it ourselves at all. And then they have said, I think you're aware of the L-shaped dock that has issues with the Corps that we're working on as well. And so they said, we will not even talk about permitting for your dredging project until we get that LDOT resolved. So the LDOT is in the process of moving forward with working with them to a compromised position, and we'll bring that back to you when we have more information from them. But it will not likely happen in FY26, since they will not even consider it due to the Spole site, which should be resolved soon, but also the current issue with the LDOT. So it's all in, it's a part of that.
you're pursuing as well as us having jurisdiction there.
That's right.
Other questions? I have one, sir. Back to Open Gov. As you are aware, we're all aware, for, I don't know, 12 or 13 years, we had not the most stellar record of audits. Having missed, I've lost count, 9 out of 12, 10 out of 12. How will Open Gov help us to have the paperwork ready for the auditor? Have we talked to the auditor about Open Gov? And will this assist them because it's kind of a uniform thing?
It will. So it will make it more accurate and more timely. So now as we go to try to pull records or reports that they might need and be in several different places, paper, our current system, other places. So this will allow us to pull that automatically. And when the fiscal year closes, June 30th, it will automatically have the updated information in the dashboard system for year-to-date numbers. So it'll be easiest for us to get that information from the system and get it to them and also allow them to get started sooner.
And the jurisdictions that you've talked to that have this, they verify that that actually, it's not just what the vendor's telling you, but it actually works that way?
Yes, and that Leland, you can look at their dashboard, type in Leland budget on the internet, and they have a whole page dedicated to this that will pull their budget book, this GFOA standard. It will pull their reports year to date. They have been timely in all that, so it will definitely help. And they have sung their praises. We've also thoroughly investigated it from staff standpoint, had Zoom meetings with them, in-person meetings with them, looking at the transition to that. So I think it will help us wholly government-wise from a financial perspective, also on the back end of making the auditing process easier for staff and more accurate, as well as for external auditors.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to touch on that also. The software allows us to provide the auditors view-only access so they can actually view and pull the reports that they're needed themselves versus a lot of the back and forth that we've had to do with them in the past. One issue with Springbrook we've had is the reporting functionality is fairly poor. When we have to go pull transactional data for an entire fiscal year, something we have to go to their support staff and ask them to do. We're not able to do it in office. With OpenGov, the reporting is almost instantaneous. It's all cloud-based software. So there's no back end that we would have to go through to get them to pull those reports for us. So we'd be able to provide them everything more timely. This year, we also have the benefit that LGC has extended the audit deadline to the end of the year instead of October 31st.
So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but just for the record, the auditing company, which is, as we know, there's only a limited number of companies that do auditing and that type of thing, so it's not like we just auditing. They have used this before?
I have not asked them specifically if they've used, if any of their clients use OpenGov. I know Jay audits quite a few municipalities across the state, but something I can definitely find out. His personal.
Can we just do that one more check?
Absolutely. And, we have also the benefit of our new deputy finance director, Jean, who's a CPA, Masters of Financial Accounting. She's Fortune 500 bred in audits, and she's done audits herself. She's done ERP financial transfers from systems. So we have that new internal opportunity to make that transition smoothly. And then on the back end, her being trained as a former auditor, being able to help us on that end.
Thank you. It's been a long time, but thank you, gentlemen, for that. Any other questions?
Just a couple.
I was dreading opening.
I'm still struggling with that.
Well, I think it's amazing that we didn't catch this earlier, that if we had encumbered 1.6, 1.8, and we were only using $1 million, that meant there was $600,000 to $800,000 still in the fund. Maybe my eye didn't catch it, but did we see that number go back and forth, like up and down? Or the-
We always see our daily ups and downs in revenue.
They're not talking about the end of the year.
Right, yes, and we do see that towards the end of the year as we have a fuller picture of the revenues and expenditures. And that's another thing that Open Up will help us with. The financial piece will automatically talk to the budget piece, so we're linked together. So there's no guessing between what the actual financial data is to the budget. So going forward, we will have an accurate picture of that budget process from the beginning.
Any other questions?
I think about $2 million over the last 3 years going back into that we didn't spend.
Yes. I'm sorry. No, I was thinking of something else, and I apologize. You gave us 2 days of possible voting on this, right? 2 days ago.
So we'll hold the required public hearing at your June 12th regular meeting.
Okay,
So you have the option to vote then, or you can wait until June 23rd, which we already scheduled as a budget work session adoption. So either June 12th, June
my
23rd.
memory lapsed, but I was,
If we vote June 12th, do we have to have the June 23rd meeting?
We do not.
On the other hand, that's the public hearing. And typically, we don't vote when we have at the same time we have a public hearing because we don't have time to respond and consider what the public has said to us. So I personally, I don't want another meeting, but June the 23rd seems to be the right.
if there's a problem with the 23rd, I'm not suggesting which way we're gonna go on the 12th, say, if somebody has a problem with the 23rd, and we have to pick another date, and please let Noah know that, so that we can accommodate everybody. All 7 of us need to be in the room whenever that vote takes place.
I think that this is a unique situation because this is the budget that we advertise and out there. So I would recommend that we make a decision at the table that night based on the input.
Well, yeah, but
And
suppose the input gives us pause to really reconsider some things that has to go back to staff. We don't have that.
And I think
And I agree with you in that case, but suppose nobody shows up.
this is going to be published today,
it will.
so it will be on the website available for the public today.
And I think you can make that decision that night based on what happens. You can decide that night or move on, whatever you'd like to do.
I agree with you, Lo, but I also think that if we don't get any input or, then we.
I think there's a low chance because of this year, it being no new taxes. If there was gonna be, and I agree with you as well, if there's a lot, if there's people coming in giving us fresh ideas and fresh things to look at, we need to pause and think.
And the hope would be if there are people who do that, they would do it prior to the meeting, letting us know at this point, because there's time between now and that meeting to look at that and confirm.
Yeah, if you don't have any input, call her.
There's the budget.
A meeting on Monday, look at meeting on
Public comment
Thursday.
can be
Yeah,
had.
we meet like, we meet every 3 days.
That's it.
So we're not gonna decide on whether we meet or not based upon what happens on the 12th. Is that where we're going with this?
I believe that's where the consensus is on this.
I think we're going to have standing room only on the 12th. And I'd be surprised if somebody at least does.
On the budget?
Input. No, on the meeting, on the,
Oh,
that is.
that is gonna be,
Think of all the things that are on the.
Yeah, but I think the input on the budget is what we're concerned about, right?
Well, I'm
So,
but we're adding this into a packed agenda that is full of things that people on council are going to, how now.
how that low, we have a chat with them, because I have the 12th calendar on me. We can rearrange the agenda items to make sure that we do it the most efficient way. Okay,
Because
Are you suggesting we take some things off the agenda?
No, I'm suggesting we make sure that
The order makes
the
sense.
order of the agenda, in other words, if it's a budget issue, if we know this topic, and we have a topic there, that's gonna have some hoopty to it. So we know that's gonna be over here. If we put the budget before that, as a suggestion, I'm not saying we're doing it, as a suggestion, we put the budget here. There's no real comment about it. We can move forward right then, if we want.
So if nobody has anything that would necessitate going back to staff. to
Correct.
Discuss.
We could make it,
reconfigure
we
issues
could,
in
we
the
could make
budget.
a vote if you all, if you guys are making that decision, if you guys want to go forward and do that, we could do it on the 12th. Let's chat between now and then to make sure that we're all on the same page on this. Work with the manager on the agenda list of items where they're placed. And then we'll see how that all works out.
I'd put the budget closer to the front because I think it's not going to be all that commercial.
Well, that's what I was just.
Yeah, okay. And then let's have fun.
If there's no other questions of the manager, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second.
You don't want to comment.
Okay,
Heard you.
I'm sorry.
You've heard you.
you're absolutely correct. Alderman, Moscow, do you have any comments?
Thank you, thank you.
Alderman Carroll, Alderman Davis,
Yes, I do.
go right ahead.
Okay, this one is a compliment to Wendell Biddle, our city planner. He is going to all of the real estate offices and handing out for distribution to their agents, the rules and regulations for short-term rentals. This is something we've talked about wanting to do and trying to find out how to do it and keep the realtors informed. And he is doing it. So compliments to Wendell.
Alderman Kelly.
Compliments to Wendell. All you have to do is send it to B-Car and it goes out to everybody.
Yes.
So we don't need staff time for that. Great job on budget. I'm highly impressed. I think that we really looked at things, make sure that we were putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And I really appreciate that because that makes it much easier for us to go back to the public and say, listen, we've got the right people in place doing what needs to be done. So thank you for that.
Alderman Spencer,
Listen,
Alderman Lay.
well done. My level of heartburn is going up a great deal on what you've done. No tax increase. That eliminates a whole lot of what people would have, shall we say, they'll take issue with. Well done.
And you did preserve some COLA. COLA and merit,
Yeah,
and merit, so that was great.
it was a chance to take care of our employees.
Because we do need to take care of it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anything else?
Do you have any comment?
I've actually expressed my comments to the manager multiple times leading up to this meeting, but yes, in public, yes, it was, when I read this document, it was the clearest, easiest document. First couple of pages, phenomenal, putting it all in perspective. The supporting numbers and stuff are in the back. And rather than get into the nitty gritty of every department, that's the manager's job. Manager runs the departments. We collectively look at how we spend budget money, and then we set priorities for the manager to work on. It all seemed to come together. Once again, the finance people are keeping us all on the straight and narrow on that government. So it's all very good. And now, if with your permission, ma'am, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Granted.
All in favor? Any opposed? Stand adjourned.